Hello to the good people and to the bad. Bad people need love too.
When it comes to positivity, we all need it.
Write about people whose names are familiar to us now, like Isaiah Thomas.
Those things always work when it comes to putting out your best self.
God has blessed you with a beautiful voice, Chris. Thank you very much for doing this.
Good afternoon to the good people. Good afternoon to the bad people, friends and enemies. And good afternoon, boom, shakalaka to you all. Chris Bates back with you. I bring you CBI-Chris Bates interviews. Always do this in between this and the precursor. So now it's CBI every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Always wanting you to be well where you are. My guest, first of all, shout out to Lisa E., super producer, PR extraordinary, just an overall good person, known her for many, many eons. Recommended this next guest coming up today. And first of all, he's a basketball player. And you know me, I was a basketball player in my own right. I could play Division 5. That's how messed up I was. But I couldn't play Division 1, 2, or 3. They had to create another division for me if I played Division 5 basketball. But I read his bio, great human being. Can't wait to chop up with him. Please welcome to CBI Chris Bates Interviews, Eric Monroe. How you doing, Eric?
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Just grateful for this opportunity. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Now, I read your bio, like I said before, so your nickname is Tree. So first, how'd you get that nickname, and how tall are you?
Well, I'm 6'6", but it was my dad's name at first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they used to call him Treetop, and then they would call me Little Tree, and then over time, the top fell off, and next thing you know, I'm Tree as well. Especially once he passed on, I just inherited the name.
It's amazing what we get from our parents, and it's amazing how, of course, the DNA, not only in body, but in spirit, and also in mind. So from Chicago, where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Inglewood, over on 61st and Bishop. That was my stomping ground.
What was it like growing up in that time in Inglewood?
Well, honestly, back then it was very tumultuous. There was a lot of chaos. The crime, was rampant. What was exciting for me is, coming home. I've been living in Los Angeles for over 40 years now, but coming home and seeing the improvements and seeing the community come together has been really uplifting. It's just nice to see how more collaborative we are, and it just seems like a really good place to live. I'm actually considering moving home now.
That's interesting because you're right. Back in the day, it was not a good place to be. And, you just have people, tearing down the community and not giving it the love that it deserves. But you're right, because I used to work there at Kennedy King College in Inglewood and at the new place. And it's amazing what time would do. It's amazing what money would do, obviously. And it's like a whole new place.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Elisa McLaughlin was kind enough to take me through the whole campus and let me see what was going on. And it was actually humbling just to see what's in our community. And one of the reasons I've been really excited about hosting my play at Kennedy King is that it invites people into the doors of an amazing facility with amazing staff, with people that are fired up and committed to seeing us all grow. And it's just a great opportunity. And I just hope people don't only just come to the play, but they also look in the doors, that there's a lot of opportunity there. They've got some great classes, great opportunities, great programs.
What was like for you with your family?
It was a chaotic, to be honest. Like when I grew up, unfortunately, my parents were, if I'm frank, they weren't really ready to be parents. They were more interested in, their lifestyle, their fun, and they were not very protective. And what I mean by that is a lot of their lifestyle choices. And my father, he sold dope and he ran girls, and my mother also sold narcotics. And they did all of that in front of me. A lot of the transactions and a lot of the interactions, I was right there. And so that was chaotic. And it was one of those things that left an indelible impression on me and made me see the world, unfortunately, from an adult's eyes at a very early age.
Does it become normal?
It does. Well, you know what is horrible or what's scary is just like, I look back at my 5-year-old self. I saw my first murder at 5 years old. we were robbed by one of the guys that worked by my dad and it worked for my dad. And then my dad, of course, took action. And then the next day we moved to New York. We were in Harlem. And it was just, so much, while I was in Harlem, we found I saw another dead body. It was just so much drama and perpetual drama that it did become normal. And I started to, just be comfortable with chaos.
That's a lot to go to a young age. Let's go to the comment section real quick, and of course, get back to the conversation. We'll acknowledge a few people in the comment section. How you doing, Sick Diggy? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to the brother. This brother is from Norway, so also giving props to him. Thank you for taking the time to be here as always. How you doing, Omar? Said hello, Chris. Happy Wednesday. To the man in black. Yeah, this is clean. More so clean than the black. I can't wear anything funky, so thank you for that. Yes, she is. Lisa, how you doing? Happy Wednesday to Chris Bass and Eric Moore. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the acknowledgement. Going back to what Lisa, being a dope producer that she is, super as well. The concept of a household is what parents make of it. And you just said before that they weren't built to be parents or to be maternal or paternal. And again, it's like just a character situation because you can have children doesn't mean you're ready to be a parent, father or mother.
Yeah, well, what was unfortunate as I got older, I realized my father didn't have a childhood. His dad left the home when he was 9 years old, and he became the head of the household. And homage to him because he used to shine shoes and go out and hustle and bring the money to my grandmother. But one of the psychiatrists that dealt with him, or psychologists that dealt with him, prison psychologist, told my uncle the man never had a childhood. So how would he be prepared to really be a traditional father? Now, what's ironic is later on in life, after he was incarcerated, he got out when I was about 14, he came back into my life and he was much more prepared to try to contribute as a father. And we actually had a very good relationship, albeit brief. He was for that period of time, very engaged and a good dad.
You mentioned about your mother as well. So to be in that type of environment, there was never a type of temptation to do drugs on your end?
No, it was funny. To your point, when you said what became normal, I was fortunate that I saw that I could learn from what not to do. There was a lot of people, like I would go to school sometimes in the morning and have to step over people. And, I saw the behavior of my uncles and aunts. I mean, my uncles, when they would get, drunk or you become intoxicated. And I knew that's not something I wanted for myself. And one thing that was really interesting, there was a guy that lived 2 doors down from my home, Mr. Durr. And he was a dignified man. He raised his granddaughter. He got up in the morning. He went to work. He washed his car, kept his grass cut. And I saw how dignified he was. The man rarely, we didn't have any extended conversations, but I was watching. And that's the thing that I want people to know. Children are watching and they will emulate what they see. And he was positive, and that's who I modeled my demeanor after. And that's who I wanted to have his focus and work ethic.
Right. See, that says a lot to focus outside the home because the home is toxic and see that gentleman that was, about business, the way he was straight-laced and how that had an effect on you. That says a lot right there of a demeanor that you were gravitating towards at that time.
Well, what was really helpful, after, honestly, when we were in New York and I saw my first murder, I told my mother and father, listen, I love you guys, but I don't want to live with you anymore. And they sent me back to Chicago. Well, what was good was that my grandparents took me in, my grandmother and my grandfather, they took me in, took me to church, and they gave me even though they were older, they still did the best they could to provide a stable home. Sometimes money was tight. And, again, they had children that would enter our home. My uncles and stuff would get drunk and come over and want to argue and fight and break stuff and all of that. And I just knew that was wrong. Something, even at a young age, that just did not sit right with me. And, I knew I wanted better for myself. And honestly, at a very young age, I started dreaming of the day when I was old enough to take care of myself and I could provide and create the environment I wanted to live in.
Lisa E, being the producer she is, she corrected me. I said Monroe by mistake, so it's Eric Moore. I
Yeah.
thought I said I tell people all the time the secret to the fountain of youth: do not get old. So
I'm gonna steal that if that's okay.
exactly
I like
right.
that.
So I apologize for that. So once again, Mr. Moore, thank you again. Now, do you believe that basketball was a way of escapism?
I will say it was because, unfortunately, basketball was my parent. And what I mean by that is that basketball taught me work ethic. It taught me how to manage loss. So you got to win and lose, and then you got to come back. And it taught me resilience. It also taught me strategy. It taught me toughness. It taught me to be punctual. It taught me accountability. It taught me how to work in a team environment. So a lot of the lessons that I learned from sports, I was able to apply in my professional and personal lives. Like you got to get along with your teammates. You have to, it's not about just you, and that's one of the things now that I share with a lot of my friends that are successful. It's not just about you and your success. How are we on this team going to contribute and help the youth and help other people?
So when you was playing organized ball, you said for giving you structure, and you went to De La Salle, I believe.
Yes, I did.
How did that environment help you as well? Because at the time, I think it was still an all boys school, correct?
It was an all boys school, and it was very, very homogeneous at the same time.
Mhm.
So that was one of the pivotal moments in my life because it took me out of a all black environment and put me into an environment where there were other races that I had to learn to navigate. And then on top of that, De La Salle is a academically rigorous institution. So that was really, a positive because I learned that, if you wanted to stay there, you had to study, you had to work hard, you had to
Mhm.
learn time management. And then, also traveling out of my neighborhood, I had to catch the train, go down to 35th and Wabash. And,
Mhm.
and that was a huge thing because, before, a lot of my time was spent between, 61st and 59th. I'm sorry, 63rd and 59th, Racine and Halsted. That was my whole world. I might venture up to Ogden Park, but that was all I saw. But then once I started going to a different part of the city, meeting people that had different interests, it was illuminating, transformative.
And even when you're on the team for playing for De La Salle, I had a partner of mine that I went to church with. His name was Chris Mooney, and Chris and I were very close. And Chris played basketball at De La Salle. I think sometimes if we don't go outside of your 4 block radius, even go to the suburbs, it's like a rude awakening. To I remember one time he invited me when they played Chicago Christian, for example, and I'm just going outside of your comfort zone in the city, let alone from Inglewood to 35th and Wabash. There had to be something else too to go into different neighborhoods to play as well.
Oh yeah, that was really exciting because some of the places that we played, the homes were big and beautiful and well kept. And I
Mhm.
thought to myself, why doesn't my neighborhood look like this? And why is there trash? Why is there disarray? Are we not as loved? Are we not as deserving? Because that's one of the things I have 2 boys, and I try to make sure that they feel valued by respecting them by providing a clean, safe home.
Mhm.
Because again, children pick up on cues. I'll be honest, I felt less than growing up a lot of times because I said, if I was good, then I would live in a better neighborhood.
Mhm.
And, again, those are little things that as children, you internalize. You think, well, I must be bad because I have to deal with these
Mhm.
circumstances. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I could be good even if I had not favorable circumstances. But I did know I wanted to strive and I wanted to provide a good, clean environment for my children.
In high school, Eric, when did you know that you were talented in basketball?
Well, honestly, my freshman year, when I got to De La Salle, I started playing. And I was a late bloomer. I didn't start playing really until I was 12. A guy
Mhm.
named Kenneth Gunn built a basketball court on the pole behind my house. And that was the start of everything. I started I would empty the trash and stay out there and play basketball.
Mhm.
And I grew, fortunately, I grew tall and then I got strong. And then some of the older kids took time to teach me how to play basketball. Well, playing in that alley gave me a level of toughness that a lot of my competitors didn't have.
Yeah.
And I started being really competitive. And, I was a very good basketball player. I could score, I could defend, I was tough. And I
Mhm.
knew early that I could be good at it.
What position did you play when you were in high school, for example?
When I was in high school, I played small forward. Played small forward. And even in college, I played power forward. Unfortunately, that probably
Unfortunately.
cost me a little money. But again, that's
Mhm.
one of the things that's addressed in Dirty Sneakers is that you have to understand that when you go to college, it's a business,
Yes,
and
it
that
is.
you have to make sure that the business is mutually beneficial for
Mhm.
all parties. A lot of times, when you're playing basketball, you better be getting an education, but you also want to make sure that you're being used in a way that's marketable to create opportunities after college. And if you're playing out of position, leave that school.
So, when did the scouts come? When did the offers come? When did the scholarships come for you? Because once again, you were heavily recruited.
Yes. Well, I started as on the varsity my sophomore year.
Mhm.
And that was, back then pretty much unheard of. I
Correct.
mean, very few guys got to play. And especially on a team that we're at one time, we were ranked number one in the state.
Mhm.
And we were very good. And that's when the offers started coming in. I was recruited I was contacted by over 100 colleges. And, it was very illuminating, but it was also one of those things there, it got real. And
Yeah.
then I started understanding this is a way for me to pay for my education because I knew I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't sure where I would find the resources to do it. And then I realized basketball could pay for college. And, that was my big inspiration on wanting to play.
What were some of the colleges that try to recruit you?
Well, Iowa State, Illinois State, DePaul, pretty much all the local schools
The ball
gave
was
me
used to be
interest
hot back in the day.
in.
They were tight.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I was totally ignorant to recruitment. I didn't
Mhm.
know what I didn't know. And I had some factors. I didn't want to stay close because I was concerned that, some of the neighborhood element might follow me. And I didn't
Okay.
need that pressure of, hey man, we're the reason you here and all of that. And then, honestly, I did not want my parents or some of my relatives coming up to the school
Right.
intoxicated or getting in fights. So that really compelled me to want to go far away. And I also looked at a similar situation. I wanted to go someplace I would play right away. So I kind of
Mhm.
shunned the bigger schools. I ended up choosing Furman University because I knew or believed I would play right away, which was accurate. But what I didn't anticipate was that I would play out of position because they had such a need at power forward.
So, what was that like going to Furman University in South Carolina? Of course, you're in a new environment, new place, everything's brand new. And then, of course, like you said, you have to play out of position. First of
Well,
all, just the comfort zone of the whole thing. Again, just trying to accept what's around you, but to get the position that, okay, I'm used to playing this position. Now I got to play this. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with being flexibility, but I talk to other athletes as well, like yourself. Sometimes that's not an easy thing to do to go from one to the other unless you're just that fluid.
no, and it's one of those things where sometimes your talent can be a hindrance to your career. And what I mean
Hmm.
by that is, excuse me, it's
Hmm.
very difficult to find someone that can defend a four and that has the toughness and the quickness to do that. So
Right.
teams are always looking for some. If you look in the pros, a lot of the bigs do not want to play down low
No,
because
they
it's a
don't.
very physical, tough assignment. You pick up fouls. There's a lot to that. But if you can do it, you may be able to thrive in college, but you're not going to be a pro at 6'6" playing the four, not in the NBA. Whereas, my natural position would be that of a two guard
Right.
or even a three. And that, that would have created a more of an NBA opportunity. But it was good. I still had the opportunity to go overseas and play. But speaking to the culture shock,
Hmm.
one of my teachers said something that was so profound. I was in class. I had an English class with this girl from Japan. And the teacher noticed, she said, Eric, your culture shock here in this country is twice that of what this Japanese girl is experiencing because it was totally different. It was a Southern environment. The culture of the attitude down there, a lot of the people that I was affiliated with, some of my teammates, they were very accustomed and they quote unquote knew their place. And I thought what was so profound was when I ended up going down south to school was the prep that my mother, she had the talk. Because my mother, we went to Roberts Temple. My mother grew up with Emmett Till. So her concern was, Eric, you don't understand how it works down there. You're aggressive, you're outspoken. That's not acceptable behavior in the South. So that was a big, something that they spent a lot of time saying, hey, listen, these are the rules down there and understand that. And, and I just wasn't accustomed to hearing that you can't and you don't, and we don't do this and we don't do that. And, oh, we can't do that. That was shocking for me.
When you're in a different environment, you have to adapt and know your surroundings and things of that nature. It can become very daunting because, again, it's brand new and you're just trying to navigate your way to survival, and because it becomes your home. And so when that happens and you're trying to make sense of the nonsense sometimes, it's not the easiest thing. I think like anything else, some people like, oh, I'm going to college or university. Well, there's a transitional period. There's a growing period. You're still on your way in the mind and in your body and around you, because all that is happening all in one time. So I think sometimes some people look at you and say, oh, well, you're going to college, you're going to do this and the third. No, there's a growing process literally to all of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I was perfectly overwhelmed when I initially got there. I just,
Okay.
again, it was difficult. It was so quiet. That was one of the things that was difficult to sleep. I was accustomed to a certain level of activity and hearing
Right.
background noise, and it was quiet. All you heard down there was crickets, after 11. And then the other part that was really kind of interesting was just the attitude toward, somebody from the North. Not let alone being Black, but people had
Yeah.
attitudes about Northerners. And, there was a huge adjustment period. And then in the middle of trying to adjust to all of that, my father was murdered. And that added to, my uncertainty. When he passed away, he was back in Chicago. The day I came back from my freshman year, he died the night before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, I remember we stopped and I thought to myself, we stopped and slept on the road instead of getting home. And I remember feeling a certain kind of way. Well, maybe if I had come home earlier, my dad wouldn't have passed away. He would have been with me. And, and then the temptation of, well, I'm just going to stay home because, my grandmother needed me, and, some of those attitudes. And I just, I just felt like I could, it was very easy for me to tap out. But also in honor of his memory, I knew I had come too far to quit and to use the term, I didn't want to punk out. I'm like, no matter what, I'm going to honor this family. I'm going to graduate from college.
That's all right there. We need to hear more of that. We'll go back to the comment section real quick. How you doing, Lydia? It says a good interview with Eric Moore. He can be an inspiration to young athletes, and you are. You are currently.
Well, one of the things, I have a program. It's called Millionaire Mondays. And, I've been fortunate. I didn't just survive. I really thrived. And my peer group has all thrived. And it's one of those scenarios where I compel my peer group, listen, your success is not just yours. It's not okay to live up on your big hill and, spend all your time on your boat and not come out and show other people your pathway. So what I do is I have one millionaire a month come and talk to the kids that I mentor in my basketball program and share their pathways. One of the things what I was grateful for at my grammar school, Nicholas Copernicus, we had some dedicated teachers. They made sure we could read, we could write, we could speak. They made sure we had the academic piece. But quite honestly, what was overlooked was understanding networking, understanding what type of attire to wear. Some of the things that, you can have this fancy car, but if you can't drive it, you're going to crash. And that's one of the things I tell my friends. There's talent in the community, but is that talent being harnessed and being cultivated to be successful? Because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have opportunity and if you don't have a segue, there's a problem.
The ability to give back and to do it with no problem, to do it with no ego. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody's built differently, as you know, Eric. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And so when you become a beacon of an example of what you can do to give back, to help, and to let everybody know that you've made it, but you can have the arm and the hand to help others. It goes back to what the late great Jerry the Iceman Butler once said: the ability to walk with kings and queens and still have the common touch. And so to have that, it's a balancing act. And so, getting to know you, just talking to you, you have that, doctor. You got that.
Well, thank you. You know what? I have to say, I knew there was a purpose in my life because of all the opportunities that things could have really gone badly. And so, you if you have any appreciation of divinity and God, you understand that you are called for a purpose. And your purpose is not just a bigger car or a bigger house and, flaunting your money. If if God has spared you, then you really need to understand that, it's your opportunity. It's an opportunity to bless other people. And, when you come from where I come from, you are compelled to be humble because I know what it's like. And I share it with people all the time. When I walk in a room and I turn a light on, that means something to me because I've gone in and hit a light switch and, the light didn't come on. I've been cold before. I've been hungry. So for me to ever be arrogant and to forget the basis, and one of the things that I'm grateful for those experiences, because when I got to college, I saw different kinds of poverty. I used to think that once we got money, we're going to be okay. But when I went to school with a lot of wealthy kids, I saw an emptiness in them because they had never been hungry. And that created a entitlement and an attitude of privilege that was really, in all honesty, it was impoverished because they just couldn't appreciate. When I eat food, that matters to me. I had a roommate. He got a brand new car. It wasn't the car that he wanted. He laid in bed for 2 days. And that was, it was a wake-up call to me. I started to understand there's different kinds of poverty. There's a poverty of ignorance when you don't know what it's like not to have.
Let's see. Good stuff, man. Back to the comment. I also like that Eric Moore points out, though, his example was the example of the importance of education and the ability to communicate effectively and clearly. I also like hearing him talking about the power of God. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a spiritual person and you realize that you can't do this by yourself, there has to be something going on in your life. You may be an agnostic or somebody doesn't believe, but something else is going on that you sense that's going on. Unless you connect with the higher power, you're just walking blind in faith or non-faith. So with you, when you realize the fact that, this can't be just me by myself, I have to connect to something to give me the power to do A, B, and C and go all the way to the end of the alphabet. And it takes, again, a special person to do that because not everybody will be aligned with that. And everybody has their journey, that what you're telling us today. And I'll tell you something, Eric, in today's temperature, we need more of that. In today's temperature, the climate in America that we're going through right now, and even in the world, I dare say, to get to know you right now and to read your story, it's needed because go back to what Lydia said and what I say, it's inspiring. So once again, just thank you as we continue the conversation.
Well, thank you. I think that one time I smile a lot. And this one person I work with, they said, man, why do you smile all the time? And I couldn't, all I could say is if you knew what I've been through, you know why I'm smiling. Right. And, when you face those scenarios and you come out on the other side and emphatically, without doubt, it was just the grace of God that you're still here. I would walk around. I didn't have a car in high school, and I would walk all through Inglewood. And then as I started wanting to play basketball, I started visiting other neighborhoods. I would go to the West Side. I would go out to Maywood and play, and I never had any problems, And so I know, and I would win. And so, a lot of times people get mad when you win, you take their money or whatever.
Yeah.
And you got to get back to the bus stop. And those guys were always very cool. Again, I didn't go out there, flexing or anything, but I would go play all over the city because I knew I wanted to be good. And God watched over me. I would ride from the West Side midnight, all through K-Town, see people get robbed. I never got robbed. Of course I had some incidents, but I never got hurt. And I was grateful for that. And so I know the divinity of God.
You mentioned about playing back in high school again and going to different sides of the city. Who were some of your, hardest competitors that also played either on the street or organized ball in high school? So some of the names that come to mind that you would just go up against, just bump and like, man, I got to put a little more on this guy because, he's pressure.
Well, one of the craziest experiences I had, and actually I was already in college, but I came home, like we would go to each other's parks, right?
Yes.
And so I want to say Cole Park was the park that Ben Wilson used to play at. So I went up to his park one time and I was up there playing, and all, the neighborhood guys back then, they didn't have YouTube or internet or anything. Like, so when you went to the park, you go up there hoping that you're going to see the guys that you want to play against. So I go up to this park and this guy goes, "Does Benji know you're here?" He's not. So Benji, somebody goes to get him. He comes running up to the park. He said, "Man, we getting down today?" I said, "Yeah." So one of the things that was really humbling, like a lot of times, I'll be honest, if you came to my park and you didn't have your own players, I'd give you the worst players so I could get the win.
That's right.
This kid, who was a year younger than me, gave me a really good team and won every game. I'll never forget that ride on the bus. Like, man, you know what? I got to give that kid his props. He could play. And him, Tony Reeder, Gerald Allen, I used to play a lot with, just anywhere I could find good basketball. We would go to St. Amson's. I played with Mike Williams, Bernard Cole, Terry Cummins, Aguirre would come up to St. Amson's. Anywhere there was good basketball. And that's how you measure yourself. And then one of the things is, if you're a young basketball player watching this, if you're winning all the time, you're not playing in the right set. You got to go where the guys are better than you. That's the way you get better.
No, you're right. And you mentioned about Ben Wilson. I graduated grammar school with Ben Wilson, and we would play at the grammar school park there at Ruggles. Man, he give me the business.
The business.
You give me the business. Now, mind you, we're 12, 13. He's not even tall yet, because I was about 5'6", 5'6", he's about 5'8". Give me the business then at 5'8". So when he got taller, of course, when the Simeon became great, it didn't surprise me because he kept working on me, kept practicing on my ass. So he kept giving me I'm telling you, man, it was uncanny. And this was before he became like Ben Wilson, superstar basketball player. I'm talking about in grammar school, man. So even then, it was amazing because the last time I saw Benji, I've told the story before, the summer of 1984, we went to Unity High School for summer school. And it was the summer before he got shot. But before that, we're in summer school, hell hot Unity, because they had no air conditioners during that time. So it was all girls school, during the summertime. No, not summertime, during the fall and winter and everything else. But in summer, it was summertime school. So man, that's when I saw Benji, was during that time, and we would meet in the hallway for recess. And he was just a great brother. And I saw him played against him, and he was the business. So if you ran with him, you most likely going to win that game 5-on-5.
Yeah, well, what I really respected was, like, he played hard and competitive, and we balled out. But the fact that he gave me, he didn't give me the trash team. He gave me the better players and beat me, and and he was very dignified. It wasn't like he gloated. He took those 4 or 5 wins and was like, "Hey, man, I appreciate you coming. I liked your game and this, that, and the other." But I could tell he was a student of the game. And like one point, I got a little frustrated, and he's like, "No, man, no. Look, I really want you to play." And I said, "Okay, I got you." Because I knew we were both in the lab, and that's one of the things that as you are learning how to play, you want the other guy to have his best day, so you can see what quite honestly, borrow from his techniques and what he does.
Absolutely.
And if you're serious about the game, you have to study the game. And I think one of the issues I see with a lot of the younger guys, they can run and they can jump and they can all of that, but they don't understand basketball. And that, not to be mean, there's a lot of pros now that do not understand basketball.
No, you're right. It's one thing to be athletic, but to have the basketball mind and knowledge in real time. And sometimes, like you said about earlier in the conversation, you said about, a late bloomer, some people just have to grow into the game. Sometimes you may have the skill, but do you have the will? And let your mind grow when it comes to knowing the sport and knowing what it is. Going back to Benji real quick, God rest his soul, he was a coach in real time. He could have coached as, the time he was young. He just was not only a student, he was mastering as he got older and older. And we always wonder what if. And like most people, you see the 30 for 30 that ESPN did on him was a wonderful documentary. It brought tears to my eyes because, again, you just wonder what could have been. And just going back to you, just the fact that you were able to know him personally, to ball out with him, whether it was on one side or the other, it means a lot because once you study a person and your game grows. So, for example, going back to you, Eric, when your game was growing in college, did you have some pros come out? I know you went overseas, but before that happened, did you have any NBA scouts coming after you at one point?
No, not really. I
Okay.
used to go up to Thule Park. Bo Ellis, actually ran the park up there, and he would show me things and this, that, and the other. And unfortunately, down there, our player development really wasn't that evolved, and I wasn't sophisticated enough to really understand. Hey, I need to be, go seek that. In my ignorance, I just thought working on my game meant, getting my shots up and playing good competition.
Okay,
but I did not do enough player development chalk talk. And I did not really lean into a lot of the older players to get techniques. And that's something that now that I do with my kids. Some of the older kids that were in my neighborhood, if you were doing something that was not efficient, they stop you and say, hey, Eric, try this, work on your drop step, up fake, you need to pull up, all that stuff. But one of the things that sometimes can be a problem is I was very athletic and very strong. So I could just bull my way into the buckets. Well, when you get to certain levels, those other people are just as big and just as strong as you are. And now you better know how to play. And that's when you really understand there's levels to this. And you think of some of your better players, they're not the best athletes, but they have the acumen and the intelligence to adjust in the middle of the game. Like a fighter. A fighter starts out with one technique, something changes, and you got to adapt. When you've got that ability, you can be a very good basketball player. And you need that ability. That carries over into life. When something's not working, how do you transition? And one of the things I teach my kids, at some point, this ball is going to stop bouncing. And are you prepared for it? And one of the things I address is what I call a basketball hangover. I see so many people, when that ball stops bouncing, they spend 2-3 years just standing in the middle of the street because their only identity is being a basketball player. And so I really encourage young people, like, listen, the ball is going to stop bouncing. What are your interests outside of basketball? And do you have character? And what kind of person are you?
You mentioned about drug use with your family and dealing or taking or both, and guidance as a youth or basketball player in that situation that you're doing now. It's funny because now talking to you, I have memories of myself playing at Ecosol Park. I live in the South Shore, and I would play there, and there was this one guy, kind of heavy set, glasses, and always just walked back and forth on the court. And someone told me he got a hold of some bad drugs, and he just spaced out. But when he played basketball at his size and age, he could still get down. That dude shoot the lights out of you, blindfolded. And so that always amazed because nobody wanted to talk to him because, of course, he was just kind of out there. Nobody knew where his mind was. But when he became conscious and somebody picked him to run 5-on-5, that dude was lights out. So structure-wise, basketball is kind of like, I guess he was his therapy, even though mentally he wasn't there anymore. When he played basketball, you could have, if someone would just got out of their car and watched him play, you would not know something was wrong with him. Just because of the fact he played basketball all that time. It's amazing.
Well, if I could say this, the one place I always felt safe was on a basketball court because you have a clear objective, you've got something to do, and it just, it was an escape for me a lot of times. I don't care, what happens. One of the things that I loved was the sound of a basketball swishing through a net. Yes. And that, I don't care what was going on, just going out and shooting some buckets would just put me in a place of serenity. And I would, a lot of times, I'd play and pray and just hoop and, talk to God and have a good time. And, I never left the basketball court not feeling uplifted and that something had been accomplished. And I've seen that therapy for a lot of people. But what's funny is when your body breaks down and you can't play anymore, how do you replace that therapy? And sometimes people find less than constructive ways to, fulfill that void.
You just said play and pray. Would you consider basketball your ministry?
I'd say it's part of my ministry. It's my outreach. Like that's the way a lot of times I get proximity to certain young individuals, and they see my game, or which is gone now. But when I would play, like, we talk after, and they'd be like, "Man, you got a nice game," and this, that, and the other. What are your interests? I tell them, well, I go to church, I do this, I do that. And a lot of times that was a segue for me to talk about, God or other interests, like it's the thing that's so great about basketball is once you hoop with a guy, he becomes your brother.
Yes.
And, some of the guys I played with years ago, when we see each other, we might not have seen each other for 40 years. We shake hands and we embrace. And, it's just wonderful. Like one guy, I'll say his name. I hope he's not mad. His name's Stephon Robinson. We played in the Boston Shootout together. And that kid could hoop. And because of our mutual respect for each other's games, we know what it's like to pull together and work. And we have most of the hoopers that I played with, you have a forever kinship.
It's a brotherhood. It literally is a brotherhood
really
/ sisterhood, depending on who you are. It is fraternity sorority of basketball and hooping. It really is. It's on be playing street ball with the neighborhood guys, though. And we see each other now. Every now and again, we'll dap and think about the days. Like I said, I can't play anymore either. Hell, I could barely walk. But still, the fact that you have those memories of hooping and just being young and in real time and things like that. I remember you mentioned about all these. Talking to you, I remember my Chicago State in the summertime. We had the summer leagues, and I played Chicago State basketball camp, and they would stay around for the summer leagues. I never got a chance to get the summer leagues, but I would hang out just to see them because, of course, it was all pro, high school and college all playing together in summer league. And I remember people you mentioned about Mark Aguirre would show up, Isaiah Thomas, Terry Cummings. I remember one time I'm with Benji, and we're at the old Chicago State gymnasium, which was so hot, they should call it the microwave because it was just that hot. Everybody sweat in there. Even the floor was sweat. That's how hot it was, like a hot box. And upstairs above the gym was a running track. And so we're dapping each other. And I said, "Man, aren't you playing?" He said, "No, I'm not playing right now, but check out this guy." And the guy he pointed was a guy named Tony McCoy.
I remember Tony.
And Tony, dude, that dude, man, I never seen anything like it. Because if Benji said he's cool, he said, "No, you think I'm bad? Watch this mofo down here." Man, that dude got down. And again, the fraternity of the whole thing. Just the fact that nowadays on social media, I'll see people from Chicago and they'll talk about, hoops, and they'll interview people like Marcus Liberty I've seen before, and once again, Mark Aguirre, and all these fraternities that come together with basketball. It really is something else. And like you said before, just the fact that you're a part of that goes a long way. So you, again, going to Furman University in South Carolina, how many years were you there?
I was there for 4 years. I stayed the whole time.
And so what did you major in when you were there?
Say that one more time.
Your major when you was in college.
Oh, sociology. I have a degree in sociology.
And when did the opportunity come to play overseas? When did that happen?
Well, right after I finished school, I had my aunt was living in California, and I had an agent out there. I went out to free agent camp where I picked up my agent, a guy named Jose Friere, and he liked my game, and he offered me, he set up an opportunity for me to go to Ecuador and play. And I went there, and that was just a eye-opening experience. Just, the opportunity to see a totally different culture, and then to go places and see that there's other places where people can ball. I thought that was going to be easy money. Let me tell you, a pro's a pro, and and they grow up playing soccer, so they have excellent endurance, and those guys can play. And so it was really fun. It was a great experience. And I shout out to Guayaquil. That's the city I was in, and Quito, that's the capital there. But it was a wonderful experience. And just some of the things they did were actually very forward thinking. They did outreach. So what we would do is we would go to different cities that we were going to play, and we would actually do a basketball camp and give the kids tickets. And then, of course, they would bring their parents and stuff. I never played in an arena down there that wasn't sold out because they were doing stuff that in the end, the NBA started doing, like the NBA care stuff and camps and all that stuff. But that was their way to promote. And it was funny years later when I finally saw the NBA doing it, I'd laughed because I knew where that had come from.
Right. No, when you give back, it does mean a lot. We started earlier conversation about giving back to the community and just giving back in general. If you're the type of person to do that. And so just the fact that you experienced it over. Once again, we just talked about you going to South Carolina, and that's a culture shock. That had to be 10 times bigger going to Ecuador, like you said before. There's another country you thought would be easy money, and it wasn't. And you gotta, work hard because they work hard too, and everything else. They're athletic. Again, a culture shock. How many years would you play in Ecuador?
Just one season there.
Okay.
What ended up happening was after the season was over, I came back to California, and my grandfather was in California, and his health had started to kind of turn. And I told my agent, "Hey, listen, I want to be here for my grandfather." And it was really fulfilling for me because it gave me an opportunity to reciprocate when he took care of me. It was now my opportunity to take care of him. Well, ironically, what I thought was going to be, not to be macabre or anything, they had predicted that he would probably pass away in about 6 months. Well, he ended up living like 2 or 3 more years, I guess, because he had love and somebody caring for him and such. And so, ironically, while I was there taking care of him, an opportunity, I'll never forget this. I was sitting there realizing, okay, I need to stay close to my grandfather, but I need a job. And LAPD was running an ad. Join LAPD. We'll pay you to get in shape. The academy, 6 months. Well, I thought to myself, well, this is perfect. In about 6 months, I'll be free to go back and play, and they're going to pay me to get in shape, and this will be great, and this, that, and the other. Well, I joined the police department, right? They hired me, right? And what was funny was when that ad ran, you talk about divinity and being able to hear God's voice. When the ad ran, I was parked in front of the testing center. Didn't even know it. I looked up and the address was there. I was parked in front of it. I locked my car, had lunch, went in, took the test, and next thing you know, I was in the police academy. 27 years later, I walked out and I just laugh at the way, if you are paying attention, God will direct your path.
He will. And he does. And again, unbeknownst to yourself, you just never know. And to take that type of trajectory shift, so going from basketball and once again, keeping in shape and playing basketball and now being part of LAPD, that experience of being with the Los Angeles Police Department, what was that like? Well, firstly, I'll be honest, I always wondered what is going to replace the adrenaline of walking into an arena and competing. And the first time we were out I was in my black and white, and we chased the car, and the car was driving fast, and I'm broadcasting, our position and this, that, and the other. The bad guy crashes his car. He jumps over a fence. I got to climb over the fence, catch the guy, wrestle him down. And I remember thinking to myself, this is better. The adrenaline from that. I almost, I don't even smoke, and I wanted a cigarette after that one because it was just, it was like, oh my God, and shout out to the people in law enforcement and, just understanding what that job really is. And then the ability to have a positive impact in the community and understanding that it's not just about chasing bad guys. It's also about seeing issues preemptively, reaching out to kids. Hey, you can't hang out here. You're headed for trouble. This is what I need you to do. Hey, this guy over here is hiring. Go over here. I'm going to look for you. I expect you to go over here. Those opportunities, really fulfilled me. And I learned so much. I learned so much more than I thought I knew what was really going on until I got in that black and white. Then you see a whole nother world. What were some of the cases you were involved in that sticks with you? I've interviewed certain people over time where they were detectives and they've been on the force or worked in their own agencies where certain cases just, you have to, it's kind of like you have to put it into your DNA and keep moving forward. There's certain cases that you were involved in still stick with you?
Yeah, a lot of them. Some of the human trafficking cases stick with me. When you rescue a person that's been abducted and forced into, what's honestly modern day slavery, but also understanding like some of the people that were involved in this, like I won't say this particular individual's name, but there was a notorious pimp. And this is a funny story because we wanted to draw him out. So basically I had to pose as a pimp. So I got this fancy car and I rented the car and everything. And I'm standing out there and I put some officers out like there were girls working for me to draw this guy's attention. Well, what was funny was a lady from my church drove by. And while I was out there pimping, right? And I'll never forget that she circled the block. You know what I mean? Couldn't believe that I'm out there.
With you?
And I was in full pimp mode, and it was so funny. I was so embarrassed I didn't go to church for 6 months. That is what it was just so funny because I knew like once I went to church, they were going to bring me down to the front and try and anoint me and all that stuff. And
Right.
and it was ironic because I couldn't obviously tell the lady, "Hey, ma'am, I was working."
Yeah, you wanted to cover, right?
It was just a weird dynamic. And then I had another case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'll never forget that because I remember growing up in Inglewood, and now I'm representing the police department. The name of the case is Patel versus City of Los Angeles. I was cited in the amicus brief because of a motel ordinance that I helped the city attorney fashion, and they were attacking it because it was effective. And there I am from 61st and Bishop, standing in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and that was a case and a moment in my life that I'll never forget.
That's eye-opening. When you said to go from Inglewood, California, Inglewood, and here in Chicago to California, to your experiences and playing ball, to be there in that moment, it really, that's one of those situations where it's like it can never happen to you, but it happens to you.
Mm-hmm. And then like those cases were hysterical. Like a lot of people think law enforcement is always dark. Well, what was really funny was working undercover. I used to go to those Diddy parties even before they were
before they were Diddy parties, right?
Right. Before they had a name, because a lot of times we had to go and gather intelligence because we didn't want certain individuals to be compromised or extorted because that could influence, the way they have to vote or the way they could be subject to undue influence. So a lot of times we go and we run them out of those scenarios. Like, are you crazy? You can't be here because you're going to be encumbered and you won't be able to do your job. So it was a vast amount of what I will give credit to LAPD for. They were cutting edge and being innovative and really doing a lot of things. I worked this unit called nuisance abatement. And ironically, we would partner with the bad guy and tell him, look, you're running the business illegally, but here's a pathway to legality. Let me show you how to do this legitimately. And because we didn't want to shut down those businesses, they provided jobs, they provided services, but a lot of those owners just did not know how to run the business legally. And I'm very proud that we would step in and say, if you don't do this, you're going to have a legal problem. You may get arrested, or you can comply and run this business legally and pay your taxes and have employees and contribute to the community. I think it's a misconception that we're going to arrest ourselves out of trouble and that we can shut everything down and it be okay. People need jobs. People need revenue streams. And I was very proud that the police department was progressive in understanding, hey, let's partner together.
Interesting you mentioned that, Eric, because it reminds me of the book, the autobiography of Malcolm X, and in the movie that Denzel Washington, of course, portrayed the great Malcolm X, when he mentioned about West Indian Archie, about how he keep numbers in his head and was doing numbers there in Harlem. And he mentioned about how if West Indian Archie was directed to a different direction, he could have been a mathematician or a scientist in math, or would have took the same talents and put them somewhere else. So just the fact you were helping people guide them from a legal perspective to be legit, that goes a long way too, because again, certain people have a talent, but maybe they need that little push in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. And you see that with kids. Like I said, a lot of times that we could identify. Well, one of the things I was very happy with, I partnered with the city attorney, and we had a truancy program. And kids that were, excessively truant, we would put them in a little boot camp and also bring the parents down and explain to them the importance of, look, one of the biggest factors in somebody becoming a statistic is not going to school. So the parents would, have the kids staying home to watch the other kids or doing all sorts of things. They minimize the perception of the value of schooling. Whereas we would come and remind them, hey, listen, this is a precursor to criminal activity and to prison. So, your kids are going to go to school. And I was very proud of that program, and it just, again, we didn't wait on somebody to get in trouble a lot of times. We would address the initial primary root causes before they turned into big issues. And I think that should be a cornerstone of law enforcement. Unfortunately, we've kind of evolved to the old adage of, we're going to wait on something bad to happen and then take active action. No, a much better strategy is to be preemptive
and proactive. Because
Absolutely.
again, yeah, right. Because if you're not, you're going to get trouble or try to bring down the percentage of trouble and crime in neighborhoods. I think part of it, Eric, and you know this firsthand more so than myself, when you're dealing with the public and neighborhoods, they feel that the cops automatically are the enemy. If
Hmm.
certain cops in certain communities will forge a relationship with the community, they wouldn't feel that bad. I think again that even back in the day when we were kids, we had a cop, what we call it, officer friendly, would come to
Yes,
your school and he would tell you about himself and the law enforcement and everything. So as a child, you get the impression that not all cops are bad, and that kind of sticks with you, kind of becomes a stigma. So I think, like I said before, working with the LAPD, the time you were being a detective and working with the community, that also goes a long way. Everything goes a long way because it's a matter of patience and guidance and where you are in your life. And certain people are there for a reason, not just to be there to enforce the law, but to be there for a reason. Dare I say, inspiration?
absolutely. Well, one of the things I think that's so important is that you have diversity in the department.
Hmm.
Because, by me growing up in Inglewood and by my parents being involved in criminal activity, I understood that, bad people sometimes, I mean, good people are sometimes involved in crime. It's
Correct.
just they don't know any better or they didn't
Right.
see a different pathway. And then the other thing too is just having empathy. Like, I've seen, my family be in scenarios and they still, even though they might be criminals, they deserve to be treated with a certain level of respect. It's not a us versus them scenario if you want to be an effective cop. And then, the career, a lot of times we get so much misinformation. If you are in
Mhm.
the police department, you'll be able to retire young, you'll have a pension, you'll be wealthy unless you get divorced a couple of times. But if you leave, and you have your pension and you've invested your money, you'll retire a millionaire. But they hide that pathway from us. And we fall into, oh man, you can't be selling out. No, a sellout is someone that hurts his community.
Right.
Someone that's positive, that's there, that understands the dynamics, that is a part of the community versus, hey, I'm going to come down here and straighten these people out. No, being an officer, you should be part of the community. One of the things I'm very proud of, our LAPD basketball team, we would go out and we would play against the community teams and they see us hoop. And like you said, that brotherhood would form and they would understand, hey, the cops aren't here to hurt us. They see us in a situation that's outside of traditional enforcement. And I think that's very, very important. Unfortunately, when you have people that aren't from the community, they are overwhelmed. They don't know the beginning of how to be impactful in a community. The people look different, they talk different,
Mhm.
they're afraid. How can they possibly be effective? But yet, a lot of times, those guys are given opportunity because it is a good job, and a
Yes.
lot of times that's hidden from us. That I hear kids all the time. I need something to do. I don't know what to do, and I explain to them, this is what the salary looks like for LAPD. Do you know that you'll be able to retire at 50 and they have to pay you for the rest of your life? That you'll have medical, that you'll have dental, your wife will have, but they don't paint that. They don't, we are so often late to the party as far as information and really having an understanding of trajectory and pathways to success.
Absolutely amazing. And you're right, where you're not really privy to that type of information unless it's told to you. And go back when you said it before about you just have good people who are doing bad things because they don't know what's wrong and what's right. They just know the environment and what they've been told and that type of guidance. And that's what it amazes me that happens. So, how'd you meet your wife?
You know what? It was funny. I met my wife on a blind date.
Okay.
She needed a date. She had just broken up with a prior boyfriend, and she wanted to take somebody his sister was getting married, and she didn't want him flexing and stuff. So they called around and they wanted somebody that could go and kind of get that, walk in with a little swag. And
Right.
so her and her friends, they found me. We went on a date, and the rest is history. 14 years later, we're still together off of a goofy.
What's your wife's name? Give her a shout out.
Courtney Moore,
Oh, that's beautiful. And your two sons, what's their names?
Peyton Moore, and Christian Moore, and they're big time hoopers and very, very sound, good young men.
Now, where are they hooping at?
My youngest son is playing at the Citadel. My oldest boy, he finished. He played at Rice. He played at University of Denver, and he finished up at Cal State LA. And now he's working in advertising and marketing. And the youngest kid he's just a sophomore, and he's going to ball out this year.
Give us the feeling of being the proud father.
Oh my God.
Of your sons following in your footsteps, not only just their being, of course, your sons, but following the footsteps of hooping.
I thought it was a joy to play, but nothing makes me happier than watching one of my sons go down the middle of the lane and dunk on somebody. No greater feeling.
Man, nothing wrong with that. You find yourself, when you were hooping, people cheering for you. Now you're in the stands cheering for your sons.
Absolutely. And the good thing is I don't have to do all the weightlifting. I don't have to do all the training. I get that same feeling, but it's not me that's got to get up, 500 shots a day or go lift weights every other day and all that stuff. So it's kind of like I get the joy without the pain.
Right. The joy and pain, right. Joy without the pain, right. I hear you, Frankie Beverly. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Now, once again, father and sons, you had to have those times when your sons try to challenge you. Am I right? They
did.
Still got it.
No, they couldn't see me. They're good players, but and they might refute this, but I grew up playing street ball in Chicago. Yes. They grew up playing in LA, shooting a lot of jumpers, and they just don't have the grit that we had playing. They're good players, but they can't see me.
Okay, they can't. You got them faded.
Yeah, they can't see me. They can't.
Okay, no. That's what I want to hear. That's all right there. Nothing but love. Eric, tell us about the Dirty Sneakers play.
Well, it's a coming of age story, and it actually describes some of the experiences that I saw, and it's a pathway to thrive and not just survive. Some of the techniques, like one of the things that was very successful for me, I learned that when you're walking through the neighborhood and you got to walk past a bunch of thugs or whatever, hey man, what's up? What you doing? And you have a positive answer like, hey man, I'm going to the library. Well, they are ill prepared they don't have a retort for I'm headed to the library. And then you say, hey man, you want to roll? I'm going to the library. And I would laugh sometimes because I was either headed to practice, going to school, got to go do homework. I always was going somewhere positive. And it would kind of be an awakening for them. Like, you're standing out here. When I finish practice, when I leave the library, you're going to be standing here in this same corner when I walk by. And it got funny to me because a lot of times they would see me walking down the street and walk away, walk to the other side, because they didn't want to hear about, somebody going to the library or doing something positive. Hey, I'm going over here to this job. Do you want to come with me? So you learn techniques of how to navigate the neighborhood. And Dirty Sneakers talks about having intention and having a vision and being responsible regardless of your circumstances, making decisions that are going to put you in a positive scenario.
And I'm telling you, Eric, we definitely need more positivity in our universe, as far as I'm concerned. You look at the news, you look at life in general. The young folks say life be lifing. But if you gravitate towards someone like yourself or others that are giving out positive information and positive vibes, you become that person, become that agent, and you definitely want them, brother. So again, this has been more than a blast. More information about, so once again, your play is called Dirty Sneakers. It will be at the Kennedy King College Theater that's located at 740 West 63rd Street. It's upcoming Saturday, September 20th. And again, I'll post on my Facebook page we get finished here. But again, it just dawned on me while I was going through your information. What's it like to come from Inglewood and go through all these travels and now come back to Inglewood again in your hometown to have this play? What is that feeling like?
Well, it feels like I've got the tool bag to contribute. I've got some experiences that can help other people, and that's what's in the play. And it talks about, and it's also a call to parenting, to be responsible for understanding that what you put in front of your kids is going to have an impact. It's also a call to mentorship. Some of the characters in the play mentor young Eric and show him, hey, there's a better way. And even though they may have gone wrong, they show different ways. Hey man, this can work for you. This is what you need to do. And it's, at the end of the day, your life doesn't just belong to you. What are you doing for the people behind you? I think so often we're dismissive of the younger kids because they make, decisions that we don't necessarily understand or agree with. But then, have you ever asked, well, why is that young man standing there with his pants at his ankles? Because
Right.
no one's taught him better. Or he just, his environment is such where there is some, in his mind, function to that, or some community to, being intimidating or not being able to make eye contact. But here, has anyone told them? And there's always this assumption, oh, they ought to know better. Well, how? And if you don't take the time to pour into these kids, then there's a problem. And that's what Dirty Sneakers is about. It's about, things that have worked for me, my faith journey, my humility, my ability to be polite and understand that I need to be presentable to create certain opportunities. And I say this all the time to young men. Do you look like the job that you want?
Mm.
Do you look like the opportunity that you want? Or
Right.
do you look like are you going to, because of your appearance or some of your decisions, are you going to run away opportunities? Are you approachable? Because what people don't know is every time you walk out of the house, it's a job interview.
Good point. Good point. Because as you know, first appearance does matter. They really do. When people check you out, and my dad used to say, you leave that house, first of all, you may not come back, to be
Wow.
completely real. And so when you're out there, do something positive. Do something that's going to contribute to society. Do something that's going to make people think. And I remember my dad telling me, I'm like 10. I mean, what I'm going to do to make people think at 10 years old? We never know, again, who's watching you, checking you out. And again, your growth, not only in height or in adolescence, but in mind. And if you're able to do all of that, which people do, and you'll be successful. And once again, I see it in your spirit. I see it in just how you present yourself. Eric, this has been more than fantastic. More information about, of course, your play. Where can people go for that?
You can go to Eventbrite, and that will give you all the information. It will give you some background on the story. We have 2 shows this Saturday, one at 1 o'clock and one at 6. We still have some tickets, but I would suggest that you make a move. Ticket sales have been moving pretty briskly now. Please join in. We would love to see you there. Come and be changed, be loved, be appreciated, and let's grow together. Let's make some art, and let's make better futures.
One last question and then get you out of here, Eric. If you can invite 4 people to dinner, alive or not, who would they be and why?
Harriet Tubman, because she's the bravest person in the history of America. Muhammad Ali, because he was visionary, he was charismatic. He put a whole race on his back and gave them pride and identity. Also, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Barack, because he loved. He came out. He had a good path. He was able to go the traditional route, navigate Harvard, become the president of the law school review, and he embraced academia. And he said one of the most profound things I ever heard anyone say. He says, "I will listen to you, especially if I disagree with you." We have a period now where no one's listening to each other, and everyone has already predetermined what their outcome, what their decision is. Well, that's not practical. No entity is absolutely right. And the minute you close your ears, you stop growing. And Michelle Obama, because she's one of the most eloquent people I've ever heard. I enjoyed hearing her husband speak, but listening to Michelle when she would deliver speeches, and she said one of the most profound things ever said: when they go low, we go high. And that is a call to a higher standard. When you can live above someone's insults, when you can live above your circumstances, that's just the way to live. That's transformational, and that is a call to being better than your circumstances and being better and not stooping to the common denominator. So those are my 4.
Yeah, that's a powerful 4. I'm telling you, that'll be fantastic. And once again, thank you for your time, Eric. This has been more than enlightening. I hope people get a chance to check this out and glean from it. As I said before, we're living in strange times. So the more positive people, the better we have for faith. and the better we can move on from. Eric, thank you so much. Hang on real quick before I guys sign off real quick. I want to talk to you off.
If I could just say real quickly, thank
Sugar,
you
right
for
in,
what
Sugar.
you do. You're amazing. I love your show and you know the platform and just you're positive and it's nice to be in partnership with you and I see you want to make a difference and let me help you.
Oh man, that's what I got to talk to you real quick before we get off mic. So hang on real quick in
Yes,
the
sir.
zone. I'll be right with you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Eric Tree Moore. I got the name right this time. So Eric Tree Moore has been my guest again. Just a fantastic individual. Like I said before, I keep talking about this whole positive thing. And again, you know the stories I do when I do my show and everything else. Of course, Baseline coming up on Friday at 4 p.m. Central. And I want to thank you for being here and being a part of that. Positivity is what I'm trying to do more on this program, even when I do the other programs as well, because the temperature of our lives right now is kind of hard to gauge. And I think that again, we just gravitate towards people like Eric that have a beacon of light that can give us energy that maybe that will inspire others as well. So once again, thank you, Eric, for being on the program. Eric Moore. I'll post his information on my Facebook page once we sign off. I'll see you on Friday for Baseline, 4 p.m. Central. Continue to be safe, continue to be sound, continue to be healthy, and most importantly, above anything else, continue to be loved. Long live the peace, long live the funk, more power to you. And as always, imparting with all of you, always keep your head up.